Hey guys, it's Mo from Mo in the Deep End, and day 10 has just finished. For your chronologicalness, it is May the 6th, 2025. And so day 10 in the Karen Reed retrial has, just finished, and wanted to get you this recap video while it's fresh in my head, even though my head feels rather empty because of all the, well, redonkulous stuff that we learned today. So we started off with Gallagher continued to be being crossed by Jackson. Again, just talked about the leaf blower, how the area that they searched was approximately 6 by 6 feet or 7 by 7 feet. That they exposed the berm to try to see if John had perhaps tripped and fallen at this time. Now, according to Gallagher's testimony, at this time, they didn't know exactly what happened, even though allegedly Karen Breed has said, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him to just about anyone who would listen, allegedly in Minecraft. But he continued to try to justify, oh, well, we looked at everything. We couldn't find any pieces of plastic. We didn't find, 46 pieces of plastic. We did find the blood and the broken cocktail glass. Um, and then we got into the fact that Brian Higgins, an ATF agent, was at the house, even though, at this point, uh, you know, Detective Lieutenant, whatever the hell his name, Gallagher, doesn't know that he is there. Uh, Went on to explain, exactly how secure and or unsecure the Sally port was because, if Brian Higgins has a key card, which we know he does, uh, in order to get into the Canton Police Department, he has open access to the Sally port. In fact, the only two places he probably wouldn't have gained access to with his key card would have been the evidence room, and that might even be further delineated down into the temporary evidence room and the permanent evidence room. He might have been able to get into the temporary, definitely not the permanent or the armory. While there weren't, a bunch of, gotchas, it was brought out that Detective Kevin Albert, Gallagher considers him one of his greatest detectives. Although he was, it was brought out on cross that he was disciplined, didn't get into the incident, but Gallagher still considers him a, excellent detective. And that was kind of the reason that Canton sought to recuse itself. Also, the fact that there were officers related and it was determined to be a homicide. They were, recused from this. Went on to talk about how the evidence exchange was done and that there were paper towels on the floor. The evidence exchange was done right next to, within feet of the quarter back panel that allegedly had the little hair that could, stuck on it, that the, paper bag with the coagulated blood in the red Solo cups was not sealed with tape, wasn't, there were no lids, nothing. So the potential for cross contamination was just absolutely insane. Now, the redirect, I didn't really think the redirect did much, but, Brennan always tries. So that did happen. Now, we've heard varying stories as to whether the jury is impressed, unimpressed, indifferent, paying attention, doing notes. And I would say, as Baker reminds all of us, take with a grain of salt what you're listening to from people because at this point, they might be seeing things, with their lens in their bias. If you're anti Karen Reed, you might read something completely different with the body language than someone who's pro Karen Reed. So do try to keep that in mind, which is something I always forget. Then we had Robert Gilman, the meteorologist. He was basically there, it seemed like, to pimp his own snow and ice municipality sort of planning weather service. He did have, an application to look at his extensive services. Uh, I believe it will cost you nearly $300 for a membership, which you have to have, and then it is $300 an hour in order to, for each of his services to basically have him look up the weather at different airports is what I'm gathering he's doing, and giving you future planning, possibly with more information to give you ideas about, icing or different kind of things that you would use as a municipality, a school system, and things like that in snow. I don't know. Now, Lolly did a really good job of making sure that this meteorologist talked about the entirety of the blizzard and not just the time around the incident where we learned that at that point there was about, now let me see here. So at 1:45 a.m., uh, there would have been about point 0.8 inches of snow. So around 1, okay, I'm sorry, around 1:30 a.m., when you do all the mathing, you had approximately 1.85 inches of snow on the ground. Now that's a dusting. It was compared to apparently being able to track a cat in because it's just a very light dusting. You can see an imprint of a cat. This is a colloquialism none of us had ever heard of, but apparently cats are great at telling the weather. There was some talk about wind chill and how that is sort of determined, the ground temperature, how that's taken, how snow accumulation is measured with boards. Basically, someone just sets a board out, and measures what, accumulates in an hour on that board and then tosses it. Uh, so, not a whole lot, but and I don't know that Alessi, and I hope that the jury was paying attention, that a lot of the snow, um, which contradicts a lot of the other, testimony from other people. It was horrifying. It was snowing. It was, a dusting of snow. It was 90 inches of snow. It does make it very, very improbable that Jen McCabe, in this little amount of snow, was able to see tire tracks. But that's what she's sticking to. She knows what happened. 100% of what happened happened. So there you go. Again, I'm not sure how much the meteorologist brought in other than he looked incredibly shocked to be there, considering his expert, kind of, application is written in Comic Sans. I am surprised that he got picked to be an expert too. Then we had Charles Ray, not Ray Charles. He was a Canton police officer. He went to John's house on Meadows Avenue to check on the children because they were under the impression that no one was home with the kids during this snowstorm. They did not end up getting in touch with the children, but they did manage to capture Karen's SUV on the dash cam and indicated that there was a crack or damage to the taillight, but they didn't sort of zoom in. Allegedly, at that moment, they were not there to observe any sort of, evidence or clues of a crime. I did want to backnate 1 second. Gallagher, uh, the gentleman that he got the red Solo cups from, happened to have a Ring doorbell or a Ring doorbell style camera on his front door. Now, seeing this, and it's, somewhat across the street and a bit cat-a-corner from, 34 Fairview, where maybe, he could have gotten any, views of lights or anything. Now, according to Gallagher, the deputy police chief that he, got the, red Solo cups from, he has his camera calibrated so it will only see the front door because it has rechargeable batteries and he doesn't want to run the battery up. Yeah, I understand it doesn't make sense, but these are the facts as I present them or as I was told them. So this is where we get, the kind of Karen's car with the snow on it and the damage to the tail light. There were more interviews played. Again, I do think that the interviews were a terrible choice for the defense. Uh, I think that in any chance, if there's going to be a retrial, you shouldn't ever do interviews. They are definitely the most damning, things for on an emotional level are Karen's own words. Then we come to Kevin O'Hara. No, I think I missed Garagos. Sorry. Not Garagos, Nick Carino came on, and we got to hear Jen's kind of or not Jen. Good Lord in heaven. Sorry, you guys. I very much apologize. We get to hear Karen kind of progress over the night after she gets home. She thinks John has blown her off, ditched her to stay with another woman. Her, being mad, mad, mad. All of her, calls are going to voicemail. And then towards the start of the morning, you get a couple voicemails where you can tell that the mood has switched in Karen's voice from pissed off, indignance, just how could you do this to me? I'm done with this relationship. I'm done with you. I'm over it. Don't talk to me, to where the hell are you? Where are you? This is not like John to be out all night. And you can tell there are vocal changes. Now, does Karen use the best language? She call him a prevert when she thinks he is out boffing someone else? Yes. Does she use not so Christian language? Yes. But is it different than anything you would say when you're maybe a little tipsy, maybe a little pissed off, really, really hurt, and, kind of having dealt with an insensitive person all day, and when you finally think you're gonna get, some time to maybe settle down and just hang out yourselves, no, he just doesn't come back from a party. This is what she is saying. This is the story that the defense has told us, and nothing about those voicemails changes my mind. The other curious thing about one of these voicemails is that it does seem that Karen butt dialed John's phone. And oddly enough, in this butt dial from, Karen's phone, it went directly to voicemail and didn't cut off for a good long time, because if you butt dial someone and you don't, it's just gonna be a long voicemail of random, like, pocket noises. It does sound like Karen, you can kind of hear it muffled. It sounds like it might be, windshield wipers going in the car. It does seem to be around the time that they found John, and you can tell Karen's voice is highly emotional, highly stressed, very pressured speaking. So, talking fast, not taking breaks, this kind of thing. You know, uh, pressured speech is like where you're just trying to say all the words at once. It's very, very crowded, sort of very tense, uh, and you could hear it. So I don't know what the state is trying to prove with this. Again, it doesn't make sense to me that a person is going to knowingly, run over or run into someone, leave them on the ground, and then set up an alibi by calling 100 bajillion times and acting like a basic, well, fishwife, if you ask me. So that doesn't quite make sense. So I am sorry I'm a little all over the place. Like I said, today was a very long day, and there was some very information dense characters and witnesses that came up. So trying to get all of that in my head before I lose it and then can mess it up. The next person we have was Kevin O'Hara. He was part of the CERT team for the Massachusetts State Police. He was given a sort of courtesy call around 2:30 p.m. or 2:50 p.m. that, the basically Canton PD was asking for help doing an evidence search. They believed that there might have been foul play or, a car involved at this point, and, they needed to search for evidence. They basically have to run these CERT requests up through chain of command, so they went ahead and started doing that. Apparently, Kevin O'Hara was, gathering brooms and brushes and shovels and things like that, a hiking lamp and different things to try to sift through the snow. Oddly enough, a leaf blower was not chosen for his arsenal. Uh, so again, there is kind of an interesting point that all of the pieces of evidence, the pieces of, a shoe, well, the shoe and the pieces of taillight that they found weren't found when there was only 3.9 inches of snow on the ground. But with, still a raging blizzard going on, and the snow was quite dense, heavy at this time. This is when the real blizzard had actually started or actually come in. It was towards the tail end, but still it looks snowy. They basically went through, he was able to get 8 members of his team, mobilized or attempted to get 8 members. Now only 7 members ended up getting to Fairview, and they started, or at least they got there at 5:24, although, they didn't get the grid sort of started until 5:45 or so. Now they claim that 5:45 is when the first piece of evidence was found, a clear lens, and they took some rather again, the establishing, distances, the use of a ruler, anything to kind of show where these pieces were found. Now, um, Kevin O'Hara does say that all of these pieces where they were found were geomarked. Now I have questions as to how accurate the geomarking is, where now that we know all of these variances can happen in geolocation, unless that uses completely different science magic that I don't understand. But I do have questions, and I'm guessing that the jury might too, if they're not always, this that familiar with the GPS, technology, and then we're having to rely on another portion of GPS technology. I do think that would be a question that I would have. Now, generally, Mr. O'Hara does take care of documentation as he was one of the full-time CERT members. He went to 90 to 95% of all the calls. He remembers that, since there was one person that couldn't come out, he was kind of helping more with the search when generally he would be on documentation. So Lieutenant Tully was the scene commander and handling documentation at that time. They actually, in order to help light up the scene, they turned around cruisers and tried to use headlights, but they also had the hiking lamps, which again offer a much more golden yellow light. So it was a little bit disorienting to try to figure out what things were in photos since the tones were so off because of the yellow kind of golden quality of the light. At least for me, I can tell you it was not as it was about as clear as mud. Let's see here. So there were 5 other members of the Massachusetts State Police, in addition to the CERT members that were doing the grid, that were helping Tully. So again, now there was talk of 2 um, in plain clothes Canton police officers. Now this would be far beyond the time when Canton had recused itself. Still reads as all the sus that they were there. Now we don't know if Brian Albert came out, but some adult male figure, not a kid. It was specified not a kid, in a hooded jacket, kind of came out the side door. Again, the side door that we were told no one ever uses. Now, detective or whoever Gallagher, went in there with, Sergeant Lank, and now this guy's coming out of it. It does seem like the side garage door might be a little bit more traveled than they would like us to believe. That being said, they found the 6 to 7 pieces of this tail light within a foot to 2 foot kind of radius, all within that same Basically, what O'Hara testified to was that all of these pieces were basically found very close to the shoe, very close to each other. While they were all geomarked, it was hard to kind of get a photo because they were basically picking up snow, dumping it over, sifting through it carefully. I don't know. Again, none of this was documented in a way that makes it make clear and logical sense to me. So I think that a lot of people are going to have, while I get the funness of having oh, it's a conspiracy. I think boiling down this particular thing, as much as I love the Albert McCabe, conspiracy, this was a crap-tastical investigation, and between investigators not being told that, they should look and investigate things, and people just kind of acting completely like logic has flown out the window, I don't know. We did end, with Mr. O'Hare or O'Hara, sorry, and, did kind of go that there weren't 44 pieces found, 46 pieces of this tail light. They had thought they'd gotten a good chunk of it. Now, Lieutenant Tully claimed that he did not have access to the car in order to give them a picture of the tail light to kind of let them know if they had found everything they were searching for or not. Now, they ended the search around 6:15, 6:20. And, unfortunately, Trooper O'Hare was not aware that the, SUV in question had been at the Canton PD Sally Port since 5:35. So there could have been a picture sent to these officers to see how many more pieces they needed to find. Were they looking for an entire tail light, the entire housing? What were they looking for? They weren't given that. Well, all of these things separately could have just been a sloppy investigation. The problem is that more and more of this is looking like these cops could not be bothered to do a good job, even for their own fellow officer. And the use of red solo cups and leaf blowers, I don't think is genius. I think it's imbecilic, and it's absolutely shows a lack of respect. The problem I think that anti-Karen Breed people have is they think that those of us who really question all of this investigation want whatever that happened to John O'Keefe to just go unanswered. No, we want the truth. We want whoever did this to John, whatever happened to John, for the truth to come out. We just don't believe that Karen Breed and the way the state is telling the story is true. And it should piss you off that John O'Keefe did not get the respect required to even go to the damn police station and get something that isn't a red Solo cup. You should be pissed off just like we're pissed off because we want justice just as much for John O'Keefe as you guys do. We just want the state to get the right person. But the fact that they couldn't even give the man the dignity by sending some happy person to go get actual evidence containers, it boggles my mind. It is a complete disgrace. So you know, I'm approaching this fairly reasonably. I did see the first trial. I don't think the state proved his case. I was willing for Brennan to do and bring something to this case. Thus far, he's just scrambling up the witness list and going here, 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 and here in order to obfuscate his case. None of this timeline has made sense. We don't even know what happened to John yet. We are 3 weeks in, and we have yet to get to the injuries that John, sustained, other than we took him to the hospital. He had, the eye, the back of the head, and a bitter bruise on his knee and his arm, sorry. I almost forgot the most important, bitten by a taillight arm. Well, you guys, that was day 10. It is still absolute crap spackle circus here. Uh, Check with your local weather cat, see what your weather's going to be tomorrow because we're buckling in for another day. Although, gosh, I wish it would be a half day, if you will. I need a break. I forgot how absolutely redonkulous this trial was. It is a marathon, not a sprint. So I am going to go find my Wednesday grit because my Monday motivation has just about left me right about now. Remember, you guys, be kind to yourself, be kind to others, but have a sassy mouth, carry a can of bitch fire, and apparently have a tactical weather cat with you at all times to figure out the weather. I'll see you guys in the morning. Oh, that was a little more powerful than I thought. Bye, you guys.